Previously on the Pennine Way. My tent is one of those that you have to put the inner up first and then attach the outer. I'm not a fan of these kind of tents because if you're putting them up in bad weather, the inner can get wet. But this seems a reasonably good tent, not let me down. It's quite lightweight and fairly space inside.
Slightly later today than I planned because I woke up and I could hear the rain, so I thought, well, I might as well stay in bed for a bit and hope that the rain dies down. It did, and I managed to get my tent away, but then it sort of started to spit and drizzle. I'm quite like using the walking pole. It's not something I've used a lot of, and I always sort of thought, nah, I don't need that, I won't walk with that. But it's actually a really useful tool. Going uphill, it helps you uphill, even if it's only taking a fraction of the weight off your feet. Over a long distance, that little bit of weight that's being put into your arms to help sort of lift you up makes a big difference. I was going to start using it as the ridge pole for my tarp, but I've decided to bring my tent this time, with it being a few days longer. But also going downhill, it's amazing how many times it stops you falling. You're walking and you can sort of miss your footing on a rock and just sort of catch yourself with that pole. So yeah, if you don't walk with walking poles, especially on longer hikes, I'd recommend. I'm really liking the GoPro attached to my walking stick. I've attached it with a bike mount and then a couple of the extra bits to kind of extend it out. It's working really well as both a selfie stick, a monopole. I can like stick it in the mud somewhere. It's working really well. Normally I'll have it either attached onto my rucksack with one of those straps, and it gets in the way and I find out I bang it and it turns itself on, or I put it in my bag and then I don't film, and again it ends up turning itself on. So it's saving the battery, it means I'm filming more, but it's also convenient. I'm not having to carry another sort of tripod or carry a selfie stick because it's just there on my walking pole. That's what it's all about, getting up to the top, seeing the scenery. But when you're a couple of miles into, you know, a 5-day walk, something like that, I'm not so much of a fan. Especially when you might end up being walking, you know, another 15 miles afterwards. So I'm just sat down for a minute, going to get a quick bite to eat, some water, before I try and tackle it in a one-off. It's fairly short. Steep. That, by the way, is Pen-y-Ghent. Okay, I'm about 3/4 of the way up now. I wasn't going to stop. I was making good progress. Just keep taking lots of little steps. Keep making, you know, making effort. But then I thought, it's quite a nice view here. There's a big rock. I can sit and do a little bit of filming.
Some people have a tradition of touching the trig point. My tradition is to physically stand on top of the trig points.
To the top now. I'm just going to have a spot of lunch and then take some photos and head back down. Just as I was eating it, a sheep came along and he really wasn't shy at all. He came along, virtually grabbed the sandwich out of my hand and had to shoo him away. I should have turned the camera on and filmed him. He was so close. Normally, I thought sheep would have come that close, but. Back down the hill now. After coming down the backside, I actually quite enjoyed going up there. I think I made a bit of a mountain out of a molehill before I started it, but it certainly adds a bit of sort of flavour and variety to the walk. Whereas the first part that we did last year was very sort of bland, walking across the Hawes, and they throw little cheeky bits in like that, and it makes it. The wind's picked up now, and it was spitting with rain as I was coming down there as well. So I've kept my jacket on. And normally once I stop, I put my jacket on because that's when you're going to get cold and start to get hypothermia. While you're walking, walk in a t-shirt, stop, get a layer on. But the wind's picked up, so I've kept it on. But I actually quite like walking in my jacket because it stops the shoulders chafing as much as that little bit of extra padding. But also, it means I can keep my Haribo in my pocket. Grab one while I'm walking. All the way down the hill to Horton in Ribblesdale, and it started raining quite heavily again, so I've put my waterproof coat on. You don't put your waterproof coat on to keep yourself dry, you put it on because Sod's Law says as soon as you get it out your bag and put your coat on, it stops raining, which has happened pretty much every time during this walk. It'll rain for about 90 seconds if it takes you a minute to put your coat on. But this seems to be a bit more persistent, so I'm just hiding under this yew tree for a second, having a bit of a map check. We stopped for a quick bite to eat at the Pen-y-Ghent cafe. Had a cup of tea, a piece of cake, filled up my water bottle, and now I'm ready to head off into the hills. Between not wanting to run out of water and be thirsty, and carrying twice as much in weight as you did before, you start to run out of water, and then you're like, oh, my bag's nice and full, nice and light, and then fill up again, and suddenly the bag weighs twice as much. Even though I've got the facilities to filter the water, to boil it, filter it, etc. I thought, well, that's somewhere, let's go bottle of water. It's water for the bottle. And might as well take it back, because you don't know how often you can stop, and I like to keep hydrated. So, you don't want to get headaches, and it's better to sort of keep drinking. When I arrived in Pennine in Ribblesdale, Pen-y-Ghent, as I went up and down and had my lunch earlier, is apparently one of the Yorkshire Three Peaks. That was why it was so busy here. To challenge people, walk round all three peaks and try and do it in under 12 hours, I believe. So I didn't know that, so I learnt something from the souvenir shop where I had the tea and coffee. So it might be one for the future to come back and do the other two and do the whole loop. Psychologically, you seem to walk faster during the rain. When it's sunny, you get a bit hot, and everywhere's a good place to sit down. You think, oh, I'll just get to that rock. I'll have a minute, sit down, and rest my shoulders. Whereas when it's raining, you're not really going to go sit on the wet grass in the rain unless you really, really need to. So you sort of cut out more stops. I think the big thing is the weight of the pack. I've tried to get like all my camping equipment down as light as possible, and then I've got about 5 litres of water now. I've filled up to my full supply, but then I've got 5 days worth of food. I might not end up being walking for 5 days, so that's where the weight is. If you knew where you were going and when, and you could be like, right, I'll get to this town that has a nice pub, I can have some food there, or this next village has got a little cafe in it, get some sandwiches there. If you planned it right, you wouldn't need to take so much food. You could travel light and fast and cover a lot bigger distance. Yay, raining again. I don't mind walking in the rain. I actually quite enjoy it. Cools you down a bit. Just hope it's not raining all the time up until I put my tent up. If there's like a 10-15 minute window where it stops raining, that'd be nice. Okay, progress report. My camera battery died during that last part of the journey, and I couldn't swap it for my spare battery as it was raining too much. Ever since I left, where was it, Horton, it's been raining. So it's been raining for about the last 4 hours, really heavy. So there's not really been a lot to see because the fog's been in. It's been raining quite heavily and I've just got soaking wet. So I've managed to put my tent up. I've been walking for a good hour and a half. I said I wanted to sort of set up at about 7:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30 at the latest. It's now just gone 9 o'clock, and there was nowhere. Everywhere for the last couple of miles has been just bog, because it's been raining so much. The ground's just sucked up the moisture. The path is a river, and either side of the path is just a bog. It's quite steep either side, so trying to find somewhere to pitch my tent has been a nightmare. I found a little bit of slightly raised ground, so hopefully it won't be a complete and utter bog, and it seems fairly firm. I mean, the grass underneath me is still wet, so I've put the survival blanket down. My clothes and bags and everything are everywhere at the minute. Everything's just sort of taken off. Got into some dry clothes and trying to find somewhere to store things. I feel that the water will eventually soak through the bottom of this ground sheet, hence the waterproof survival bag, because if you even though it's slightly raised up, the ground below is still wet. So that the survival blanket is hopefully going to be, normally I'd have my bivvy bag for that. It's mainly to sort of stop my roll mat, sleeping bag, mainly my sleeping bag getting wet. Everything in my bag is inside a waterproof bag, so that's not too bad, but everything's soaking. You can hear the rain. Okay, so I'm going to try and cook. I don't know how. I'm going to try and see what food I've got that doesn't require cooking, because I can't cook in the tent. I can't really do a lot outside of the tent other than get cold and wet again. So I'm going to try and find, I've got loads of stuff I can eat.
but I'll try and make some food. Then I'm going to get my head down, get some sleep, get up early in the morning and carry on.
Okay, so that's where I ended up staying last night. This little bit of higher ground provided the sort of barrier between the rest of the bog and the wet ground that's everywhere else. So on a little bit of a sort of lump that's stayed dry, and the tent held out well. There was no leaks, not even seeping through the bottom. I think most of the moisture and the wetness that was in there came from trying to put it up in the rain, with it being a tent that puts up inner first and then outer. No matter how quickly you do it, the inside still got wet. But yeah, the tent held up really well in the bad weather, which was just persistent all night. People ask what makes a good campsite for wild camping. I think it depends on the circumstances, because last night that little bit of a mound, which was just big enough to put my tent on, made the perfect location, because everywhere else was so squidgy underfoot. It was the ground was completely saturated from the amount of rain, but that slightly higher piece was sort of spot on. I'm having to hold the GoPro with my hand. One of the screws that attaches it to my walking stick seems to have gone missing. It'll be somewhere in my bag. Anyway, yes, right, in the morning I've got up and I've put all my wet clothes back on. This is something that we call wet and dry. So when you're out for a few days or long expeditions, you can't carry spare clothes for every day. So I have one lot of spare clothes which I keep dry. So last night I got into my tent, I took all my wet clothes off and I put my dry, clean, spare clothes on. Then in the morning you get back up and you put your wet clothes back on. And it's not very nice at first having to put your wet clothes on, but when you walk in the wind and the sun, they will dry. In the wind and the sun, they will dry, because it's either going to rain again, in which case your dry clothes are going to get wet and then you're not going to have any dry clothes, or it's going to be quite sunny, in which case the wet clothes that you were wearing will dry out. So wet and dry always means that you've got a dry set of clothes at the end of the day to get back into. Just notice while I'm filming that the lens has got terribly steamed up and misted up. I hope you can see me. Just sort that out. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Condensation or something on the inside of the lens. I changed the battery over last night and it was damp. Okay, I've probably been walking for about 10 or 15 minutes this morning, and I've kept my coat on at first just to give it a chance to air out and get a bit of wind around it and to dry out. But I've been walking because of the breeze and the sun keeps coming out and my body heat. My clothes are actually getting reasonably dry there. My trousers are virtually dry, my shirt's still a little bit damp because it's been under my coat, but within 15 minutes what were wet clothes are now good to go again. The theory does work. My coat, I suppose a little disappointed with it. I mean, when there's a bit of a rain shower, it genuinely keeps me quite dry. Although yesterday walking in it and walking in the rain for a good couple of hours, eventually it did soak through, and hence why my shirt was wet. But there it was that heavy for that long. It was sort of soaking through everything. even to like the top of my bag, even though the bag's got a cover over it. It's a thick bag, and then everything inside there has got a waterproof bag in it as well. So it's pretty heavy rain. So I'm just in Gailey. So this is quite a nice scenic little village. Just thought I'd stop and do a little bit of filming here. Nearly in Hawes, it's like the next town up. In fact, I think that church is in Hawes, so we're probably about a K away. This last bit, as I've just came up here, I've just come up to Hawes. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Anyway, I've decided it's took me, I mean it's 1:30 now, so I wanted to be here last night, so it's took me at least half a day extra to get here. So instead of cracking on and trying to push on again, I'm actually going to stop the walk here. I was planning to walk for maybe another day, a day and a half or so. But if I do that, I'm going to be further out into the sticks, into the middle of nowhere, and then I'm going to have to put in a massive dog leg in order to find a village where I can easily get a train, and it's going to be, quite difficult. So logistically, why I'm here is going to be easy enough to sort of get a bus, get a train, and get back home. So I've enjoyed the couple of days that I've been walking. So why I've enjoyed it, instead of pushing myself too far and keep pushing further and further, trying to get more miles, I'm just going to stop now. This is a good place, and it'll be a nice checkpoint to start off from again next time. But that'll be for another adventure. A nice meal of pie and chips in that restaurant. I didn't film any of that because, to be honest, it wasn't really on my plate for long enough to even get my camera out. I was that hungry, I just devoured it. It was really nice. Then I caught a little white bus. It was like a guy in a minibus, and he took me to Ribblesdale station. So here I'm going to get the train back down south and back home. So this is going to be the end of my video. Hope you've enjoyed the journey so far. Thank you for watching, and check out the future videos when I continue with the rest of the Pennine way. Cheers!